Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Unlocked, the podcast that inspires you to create a successful, happy and positive life, hosted by me, Ricky Locke, trainer, speaker, professional magician, who's on a mission to understand how can we truly live the best version of ourselves. Welcome to part 2 of the Steve McDermott podcast. Steve has been very patient with me, and as podcast fans will know, my laptop broke a few weeks ago. I brought a Mac and the Mac doesn't read PC files. But it's not a problem because it's all sorted now, and we are now finally here, a little bit overdue, but part 2 of the Steve McDermott interview. In this brief discussion about the book, How to Be a Complete and Utter Fuck Up, 47 and a half Steps to Lasting Underachievement, it is the total antidote to all those trashy self-help motivational books. And we discussed lots of great nuggets from the book, but don't switch off or panic because the title, How to Be a Complete and Utter Fuck Up, is quite the opposite. It is quite the opposite of what it says, because behind this entertaining book is a very serious message to help you be the best version of yourself. I love this book. It's fantastic. It's the third copy of the book, and can't wait for you to hear it. We discussed loads of great nuggets from the book. As always, thank you for listening, and if you do enjoy this episode, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a little review. But without further ado, here is the podcast, part 2 with Steve McDermott. Well, Steve, thank you for that. I really appreciate that, sharing that. We'll move on to the book, because I guess that's probably one of the things how we connected recently. And I've got to say, Steve, actually, thank you so much, because I'd obviously put a quote out from Girth, which was from the second edition. It was on my LinkedIn. Then you found it, you connected, and I went, oh shit, oh my God, Steve McDermott's connected with me, you know. And then obviously, thank you for getting in touch and making this happen. But I absolutely love this book. And for everyone listening, the third edition has just come out. It's called How to Be a Complete and Utter Duck Up, 47 and a half Steps to Lasting Underachievement. I have shared a video of this recently, which I'll put in the show notes as well. And I think it's an absolute brilliant book filled with pure gold, really. And it's, as I've said, it's that perfect antidote to those trashy self-help novels that make you go, ugh. You know, I totally agree. As a British person, no offense to anyone out there, but yeah, I'm not one of those people that can, you know, like you said before, massage each other and all that. But this is just a really great way. It's simple. It's chapter led as well. So it's really something you can just pick it up every day, read a chapter every day and learn something from it. But I'd love to know, where did this all start from? You've mentioned it's over 20 years ago, 2002, I believe was the first edition.
Yeah. Well, it actually started as a self-published book. So again, if we've got any budding authors out there, you may be one of them, Ricky, right? If you think about publishing, there's a few ways you can go. And I think the world of self-published has changed a lot. It's gone away from, say, vanity publishing. But the thing about any kind of idea or book is, it's like, well, is there a market for it? And you need to test it. So me and my agent first did the self-published version of the book, and we got feedback on it, right? And people loved it. And that was 39 and a half steps back then. So the other thing I would say is, you know, you can have a second go at it. So, because it's been over 20 years, there's been a lot of changes in my life, right? So we did a self-published version, got feedback on it, and then you can go to a publisher's. Now, publishers, all they're thinking is this: will we get our money back on your advance? Now, before you all get excited, in the world of business books, you're not going to get like £1 million advance. It's not Harry Potter, right? But it's still a bit of money. So if you can show that you've already sold a load of your book already, so that'd be my top tip for that. So what I like about it being a third edition is, obviously, I like to feel over time it's improved just based. So we know the 4-minute rule works because I get feedback on it. But there's 3 new steps in the new one, right? Which is why it's so exciting to be able to bring out a third edition, because things change for us all, don't we? So the 3 new steps in my case in the book that I talk about, I rarely talk about myself, right? Which again, maybe this is the American thing. You know, so a lot of American motivational speakers talk about how they climbed up a mountain, you know, just using the fingernails, or slept in the car for 7 years before they became a multimillionaire and lived in Hawaii with 7 helicopters and all that, right? Yeah. So I'm not a big fan of that, because from Yorkshire, you don't really like show-offs, right? But I thought there's an opportunity with this new edition to be a bit more personal in terms of significant things that have happened to me since the last edition came out. And the 3 significant things that happened to me since the last edition came out was, I had 2 really bad bouts of clinical depression. And I think it's really important, particularly for blokes from north of England, I think, to recognise that anybody can get mentally unwell. So there's a chapter on that. And I think the big, in terms of beliefs, I used to believe, you see, that you had a choice whether your glass was half empty or half full. You know, we'll talk about this. Yeah. So people listen to this, just stop for a moment and ask yourself, am I the sort of person who's like got a glass half empty or glass half full? And I thought you had a choice. And what I learned when I had those 2 bouts of depression, which are well behind me now, was you don't have a choice, right? whether your glass is half empty, half full. And we know that that's still a common belief that you have a choice, because there's one of our daily newspapers, which I won't name, but it's sort of it's a red top, right, quite right wing, and they ask celebrities questions like, can you still run up a flight of stairs and stuff like this. But one of the questions they always ask them is, have you ever suffered from depression? And the vast majority go no, because I like to think I'm mentally strong, right, and I'm a glass half full type person, and that just tells me that it's still massively understood. So I thought we needed a chapter on that, right, which says that 1 in 3 people listening to this, and perhaps even more given the challenges we've had recently, will suffer from some form of mental illness. And I think it's beholden to us who have to be prepared to be open about and vulnerable about it. So there's a chapter in that, and it's mainly aimed at those people who are having to sort people who are mentally unwell, because I think they're the ones that are often forgotten. I think that's a really hard role, right? So my wife Candy actually wrote a bit in that bit. So that's good. Once I sorted that out, I decided that I would stop drinking at the age of 60. Bit of a tradition in north of England for my generation. So there's a chapter on how, if you chose, you can reduce your dependence on alcohol if you're dependent on it, or you can stop drinking entirely. Wow, right? So I've attempted in one chapter to show you how to do that. And because I did those two things, it freed up my time to become ridiculously physically fit. So I'd done bugger all, really.
If I can just say as well, you know, my first impression of you was the 4-minute rule, where, and I'm not going to say, you know, but you look different then than you did now. So you look incredibly well, which is absolutely fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Yeah, because I am.
That wasn't, sorry, I didn't mean to say that you looked unwell.
I know, but, you know, but I was like, you know, so there's 3 tips in there. So that excites me as well, because it's kind of like, you know, and all of those are all around the objective belief, right? So if you think about depression, I used to have the belief that it was a choice. It isn't a choice. So that's a powerful belief, both for me, but for everybody else listening to this. You know, it's not your fault. Doctors can't even agree on perhaps what causes depression. Yes, there's life circumstances, but it might be chemical imbalance in the brain. It might be that you broke your leg and then it went. There's a lot. Nobody can really agree on what causes it. It can, in my case, just seem to happen, right? But that's around the beliefs you have. Beliefs around drinking. So the chapter on that is all about, most people have the belief that you can't be a fun-loving non-drinker. And I've got to tell you, I haven't had a drink for, well, I don't count, so I'll have to think about this now. Nearly 4 years. I don't count, right? Because I changed my beliefs around alcohol. I didn't put the focus on what I was losing. I put the focus on what I was gaining. And in fact, people won't believe this because it seems so impossible. But within 2 weeks of stopping drinking, having been a lifelong drinker, northern lad, you know, and all that, I didn't have any cravings at all. I've never had a craving, and I can go to a pub, I can go to parties, Northern Soul all-nighters, best time ever, 30th wedding anniversary, right? So it is possible. So that's remarkable. And the fitness thing, right? Who'd have thought I was really good at running? I wouldn't have thought that. I mean, I used to play rugby union winger when I was like 16, 17, did a bit of walking, but never did any running. Got into running via my wife, Candy, who did Couch to 5K and all that, but I'm quite competitive. So I said, we need to do like a 10K race, and then twice that is like half marathon. And then I did the Yorkshire Marathon. And as I said, I was meant to be running the London Marathon last year, but this year, me and Candy are running the London Marathon. And I'll be just shy of 65, and she'll be, and that'll be my 3rd marathon if you count running around the track as one, and it'll be her 1st marathon. And that's all around beliefs, right? Because people, when I did that 105 laps of the running track on my own because of social distancing, the number one thing people said to me was, "How boring is that going to be?" And I knew that's just the power of belief, right? This is one of my big topics, beliefs. That's just a limiting belief. Because if I had the belief that it was going to be boring, both the training, because remember, training for a marathon's 4 months. So it's meant I had to run 22 miles on that track on my own 5 or 6 times before I even did the actual marathon itself. So if I had the belief it was going to be boring, what's it going to be? Boring. Yeah. So I decided it wasn't going to be that. It was going to be something else, right? So there's a massive mental application to that. The number one, if you don't have to be into running to think about this, but the number one thing that people talk about with marathons is hitting the wall. You might have heard that expression. So a lot of people, if you watch London Marathon on telly or whatever, round about 18, 19 miles. That's when you see people staggering around and all that. And I thought, that's just a belief. Because I've noticed lots of people do hit the wall, but lots of people don't, do they? Right. So what are the people who don't hit the wall? What they're doing then that's different? And actually, it just came down to like several things, but like the right training plan, right nutrition, right hydration, right energy, whatever. If you did all those things, and also if you visualized yourself. See, I ran the first marathon, Yorkshire Marathon. I ran that so many times in my head before I ever showed up. Now, when I ran it on the day, it's like I've done it a million times before. And you'll know this when it comes to teaching presentations, what you're going to do in a webinar, talk about this a lot in the book. All success is created twice. So you've got to see yourself in your head doing a good job. And that's whether that's running, doing a podcast, doing a presentation. All success is created twice. So that all power of visualization. So the running, so all the stuff I'd learned as a motivational speaker, I just put into my running, right? So it's a joy. So we start training for that in June, I think. Hopefully that'll happen in October.
Yeah, well, light's at the end of the tunnel now, isn't it? It looks like it's coming that way. So
yeah, and if it don't, I'll have to just do a virtual one again instead.
Yes, yeah. You should just take a camera with you, do a virtual marathon.
Well, the trouble is, you see, the thing with all the social people do that, but then you do again, a bit like I said, that advice about when you have 4 minutes with your kids, put all your digital stuff away. I think a lot of people actually miss the experience because they're too busy recording it, don't they?
Hey, it's Ricky, and I'm just pausing the episode just to remind you that if you do love this episode, then head over to Apple Podcasts or Podchaser and leave us a quick little review. Even if you don't want to write anything, you can just click the 5 stars, leave a rating, and it helps this podcast get shared to more people around the world. Now, I know that you're a really nice person and you're listening to this episode, so thank you. So let me know what you think. I would love to hear your thoughts. Keep on being awesome, and let's go back to the episode. Goodbye. Agreed. Yes, 100%. Yeah. Well, you think about Clubhouse notifications now that we all get as well. Like I found like that first week I first joined, it was like, hang on a minute, I'm sure I'm supposed to be spending some time with my fiance right now. I was like going,
in case people haven't heard of Clubhouse, that can suck all your time away. I think it's got a place, but that's true of all social media. It's all about discipline, in it, right? And does it have a place in your business, in your life? And these are all good questions to ask, really. But my final thought on the book will be, I think it's you can read it in a few ways. A lot of people buy it and they go, I bought this as a laugh because you need this. You need to learn how to be a complete and utter duck up, right? Because you're already a bit of a screw up as it is. And the people buy it as a joke for somebody else or for themselves to keep it. Most favorite place people keep it is the downstairs loo. Great, because what happens is you get under the radar and they start reading and go, hang on a minute, this is quite funny, but it's quite profound as well. So there's that. Yeah. Or some people buy it, as I say, because they prefer their self-development with a bit of fun, but that doesn't mean that it can't change your ideas. And if nothing else, as you've quoted from it many times, my goal was to have some of my favorite quotes in there. As you know, it's all basic. In case people are thinking, why is it written? When I was in America, I did a lot of speaking in America. People go, the Americans won't understand this book, Steve, because you're writing a book on how to be a duck up, right? How to be a failure. They don't get irony, right? And I go, yeah, but... And so in case your listeners are wondering, the whole book's written using reverse psychology, isn't it? So, you'll all know if you say to a small child, don't drop the milk, what do they do, right? So every chapter starts, with the word don't have any goals, for example, right? It also starts with a quote to avoid, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then action not to take, because you and I both know, don't we, like the difference between being a duck up and not being is what you do. You did a great little I think one of your previous podcasts about burning your boats, right?
Burning boats, You
can't talk about it, you got to do it, right? And I think what's happened is a lot of people in the last few months have kind of got stuck and taken no action because they don't know what action to take. And I would say just do anything. Don't matter what, you just do anything. Don't matter, whether it's the Zoom thing, whether it's Clubhouse, don't matter, just do something. Will it work? Who knows?
Yeah.
But you've got a chance
to learn and work out to do it later.
Work it out later, right? You'll find a how at some other point. But I think we've all been sort of a bit paralyzed by overthinking. I know you're big on procrastination. I could do this, I could do that, I could do the other. like we're running, it's like what else, it's just one step before in front of other, right? How do you run a marathon? One step at a time, right? Literally, you don't just go out and run a marathon. I mean, my point in the book is, I'm not suggesting that you do what I did. It might from the outside seem crazy, but I am suggesting start small. Anybody can stand on one leg when they clean the teeth.
Yeah.
Right. You don't have to go out and run a marathon. And I think so, all those little moments. So just go away now and go, right, what am I going to do with 4-minute rule? And what's one thing I've been putting off doing? One small step I can take, couch to 5K, that's getting off sofa and just going for a 10-minute walk and then a 20-minute walk. There's just stuff we can do. But you've got to take, as we started this podcast, you've got to take personal responsibility. Hardest thing to do, especially if you're young, because it's so much easier to blame other stuff, right?
Yeah. And
yet it may be true that all those things have created the circumstances, but we have the power to get out of this. We have the power to create change. And I think we will look back actually at some point and go, that was a crazy ass time, but wow.
Well, it's like in the book, you talk about the whole, when people blame the world for everything that's going on. Well, the world was here first. The world doesn't owe you anything, does it?
No, and it'll still be here when we're not here as well, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to, and I know people have had very different experiences. Don't get me wrong. I think this notion that we're all in it together is nonsense, obviously, because it's easy to be in it together when you're in a big mansion and you've got a lot of money and, it don't matter. And if you're in a high-rise apartment and you're a single mother with 5 kids running around and you've no money, no job, that's different. However, in a sense, we are all in it together because we've all had this unique world experience. And I think... hopefully we'll better look back and go, what a gift, really. Might not seem it right now, but what a gift, because I've met people and spoke to people that I would never have met in any other circumstances than this, and had to develop, as I know you have, new skills and new things and new ways of thinking that I probably would never got around to doing. Because I didn't have to, right?
Well, I agree with you, Steve. I think you're absolutely right. I think that whole thing when people say we're all in the same boat, I think we're all in the same storm. I remember last year, furlough boats were beautiful, weren't they? But my little small business RAF was dying, massively. But it was the same. I just decided to take action. I thought of an idea of doing an online show. I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm a speaker. I'm a magician. I like being in front of people. So, but then it was just adapting and, like you said, taking action, doing something, saying I'll do it, working out to do it later, and then. 6-7 months later, I'm still doing it.
Don't be afraid of ducking up. I think that's the thing. I think we're just so afraid of failure, right? And yet we know, and it's a cliche again, but that's where all the learning is, right? That's just where everything. I think the biggest change in my life is when I've changed my mindset, or if you like, changed my beliefs around something, and I've just taken some sort of calculate. I'm not saying jump out of the plane without a parachute. Taking some sort of calculated risk, and gone. As long as I don't beat myself up, and all I can get is some results here. Just some results. There's no failure. There's just the chance to get some fascinating results and learn from them. I'm not going to bet the house on it, but I can learn from it. I know it's easier said than done, but that taking action. And when I look back over my life and my career, it's those moments when I was brave. I left a job in advertising when I only had 2 kids, and my wife was a full-time mum, and advertising, high, brilliantly paid job, fancy car, all that, healthcare, and I just stopped all that, and I know you've done a similar thing. I went, I'm going to go self-employed. And the number one thing people say to you when you go self-employed is, no security. You have no security, which of course is a myth, because you have none more security working for somebody else. In fact, you probably might have less because they can fire your ass, can't they?
Yeah. The only my mum and dad said to me, they said, are you going to pay your mortgage, Ricky?
Yeah.
I was like, what, like everyone else does, Mum?
I know. So these are all just things to explore, right? So I think there's a real opportunity for everybody listening to this out there. There are opportunities. Yes, it's challenging, but you just need to search out those opportunities. Be prepared to fall flat on your face now and again. That's where the learning is. I don't know anybody that's done anything. I know because my lad's big into magic. Finley, right, he's a good magician, right? And I know a big part of magic is just getting it wrong. That's a big part of it. Getting it wrong till you get it right.
You're absolutely right. The amount of the gigs that I've done in the past where I've gone to like a wedding and spilt a glass of wine on someone, if I focused on that, I'm a complete failure and a complete utter duck up. I'm never going to carry on. But it's what was the real win there? Well, the real win, Ricky, was that you tried something new. It didn't work, but hey, you tried, and that's the main thing. So let's carry on again. And that's the difference, isn't it? Like you say in the book, and I think in some podcasts I've heard you talk about, is that stuff happens It's how you respond to it. And that's the main thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll leave you with this final story, right? So, I mean, we use this on a lot of our workshops too, right? And I was inspired with this with Star Trek. So, any Star Trek fans out there? So, when I think about Star Trek, again, this is my generation, not the next generation, but my generation. I just think about what I call the original TV series with William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy, right? So Captain Kirk, right? And when I was a little kid, I remember we just got a colour. This is how old I am. I remember we just got a colour television.
Wow.
And one of the first programs, I know, and one of the first, Keighley, north of England. Wow. One of the first TV programs I ever saw in colour was Star Trek, right? Which is vivid, technical, you know, the red uniforms, whatever.
Yeah.
And a typical episode of Star Trek, they'd be getting attacked by the Klingons, which is quite painful, isn't it? And like they're all falling about the bridge, and Kirk is getting all emotional, but not Spock, right? Spock's in what I call the Spock state.
Yes.
So he'd always be stood like this, and all chaos. He'd just stood like that, and he'd just go, "How fascinating!"
Yes.
Right. So I think that's a really good phrase. I think having like a little mantra you can use. So again, just like the 4 minute, I've trained myself when it's all when the stuff's hitting the fan, you know, whether you're spilling wine on one of the guests at a magic show or your presentation's going to hell in a handcar or whatever, if you can just stand back and in your head at least, or maybe afterwards just go, how fascinating. Because I think what can happen is we try something and like we get like Kirk, we get really emotional, and we beat ourselves up, you know, we step outside our comfort zone and it doesn't quite work. And we go, oh no, you know, I ducked up again, I failed. And we beat ourselves up and we miss the learning. Whereas if we can stand back and be a bit more spot-like and analytical and just go, how fascinating. So when it's really going down and it's not working, if you just, because if at the very least it'll make you smile. You know, when it's really going wrong, you just go, how fascinating this is, right? I've done it loads of times on stage, in workshops, when crazy stuff, things you just couldn't have predicted, and you just go, wow. And me and my colleagues, we just have a shot and go, bit of a Spock moment here, innit? And go, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you get, but the point is you get the learning and you put it into your next go. Whereas if you get emotional, you just forget the learning and you just remember the pain, right?
Yeah.
So a bit more spotlight.
Yeah. I was going to say there was something that happened to me once at a magic show where I was showing a deck of cards and then a card dropped on the floor and everyone's going to go, you know, they all look at that. And I just went and just came up off the cuff and went, gravity, you know, or like, or, you know, stay. I think that's what I said. It was like, snap my fingers and went, stay. Great, I'm working on that one, you know, and he just kind of adapted to it. But it was like,
well, one of the master beliefs, I think one of the master beliefs that all great presenters have is use everything, right? Because the audience don't know, and you know that as a magician, as a presenter, right? And that's just so empowering, a belief to have. We talked about beliefs during this podcast, don't we? And a great belief to have is they don't know. They never know. So when you're giving a presentation or you're doing a magic show, whatever you're doing, whatever it is, they don't know. And unless you're stupid enough to tell them, like, I meant to do this, I meant to do that, I meant to do other, they'll never know. But I think we're so quick to want to go, I meant to do this, oh, I'm really sorry. And they don't know, right? And you can have a little brain smile and go, ha, how fascinating. If only they'd known that I didn't mean to drop that card, but they don't. And and I think some of my biggest learnings is when it's gone wrong, if you like, and the audience have like, you've probably had this experience, somebody shouts really great heckle, right? You get a great heckle, or somebody does something and it buggers up your trick or it buggers up your presentation, and you think, but you think that was great. I'm going to use that the next time.
Yes.
So some of my best material is something the audience just shouted out, right? Right. Somebody once shouted out. What did they shout out? They said, "You look like the bastard offspring of Elvis Costello and Buddy Holly." Shouted out. I thought, I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that. You know, so that's it. Just welcome it all. Welcome it all.
Yeah. It happened to me, Steve. Yeah, it happened to me once at a show. I shouted out a question. Does anyone know the difference between a magician and a mind reader? And someone shouted back to me, went, about 300 quid in it.
Yeah.
And I went, that's pure gold. I'm having that. And it stayed in my repertoire for the last 3 years. But anyway, Steve, look, I'm going to wrap up because I'm conscious that I'm taking a lot of your time. I really appreciate it. I think we could talk about this all day. So I love this content. I usually finish up the podcast by saying, obviously, thank you first for sharing so much value and so much gold. There's usually 3 questions I usually ask. This podcast season is all about living the best version of yourselves. And I talk about how to live a happy and positive life and kind of create a magical experience. But if you could say, what could we do to make a difference this year to live the best version of ourselves? What would it be?
I think it's the whole notion of purpose, really. We haven't really touched on that. And I think, what is purpose? A massive topic, but I think it's making a meaningful contribution is one way I would define it, whatever that is, right? So I don't know if we talked about nonverbal communication. I don't know if it's possible to tell if somebody's smiling behind a mask. What do you reckon?
I think, the eyebrows would give away something, but then
anyway,
it might not be.
If I was to give you like a real simple practical tip, back to what we've been talking about, 4-minute rule and stuff, is I make a point of smiling behind my mask. Now, I don't know if the person I'm smiling at can tell. My eyebrows might go up, whatever, right? I don't know. Yeah. But I know it makes me feel better.
Yes.
Because we know when you smile, if you want to change how you feel, just put a big stupid smile on your face. Because the science says mind-body connection, motion follows emotion. It's like your brain goes, he's got a smile on his face, he must be happy, go on then. So at the very least, if you put a smile on your face when you go to the supermarket behind your mask, it'll make you feel better. But there's a chance, maybe an outside chance, that the person that you're looking at will pick up on that smile. So I think I'll just give you a real practical thing to take away in the next few months. Smile at people. And if you're outside and you're social distance, you don't have a mask on, definitely smile at people. It'll make you feel better, and it'll definitely make them feel better, and it'll definitely help those first 4 minutes of any interaction you have all day long.
I love that. Great advice. And I guess then lastly, Steve, where can people find you? How can they find out more about what you do?
Right, so, just Google me, as I say. So I've www. We don't do the W anymore. It's SteveMcDermott.com, stuff there. You can get the book on Amazon. Just Google and find me. We do a regular thing, Confident Club Cuppa on LinkedIn every Tuesday. So you can easily track me down. You'll be putting my contact details on, yeah. Open for speaking engagements remotely, and hopefully back in a room with some real people, Ricky, at some point.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Yeah. Well, Steve, thank you, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on. And good luck to you. And fingers crossed. Are you going to get to the Fringe, maybe? Is it going ahead?
No, I've done it now. I've ticked it off because it was last year. The irony was, I had more space in my home office than I did in the venue I booked in Edinburgh. That's quite funny, right? So no, I'm not. That's gone, that goal now. Book's out, that's gone. But the London Marathon is my next big focus. So that's what I'm getting into next. Start training for that soon.
Nice one. Well, good luck. And thanks very much for coming on, and good luck for 2021. Thanks, Steve. Thank you. Thanks, Steve, for coming onto the show. And don't forget, head to the show notes. You can find out more about Steve's work and how to get a copy of this book. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a little review. That definitely helps out with the ratings. And I'll join you on the next episode of Unlocked. Goodbye.